Hello again, and welcome back to Legally Cited. This is Jesse, aka BGFH, and I'm doing another little bonus video for you guys today. As I'm recording this, it's a little bit early. It's a day early, but Thursday, the May 17th, is actually the 7th anniversary, I just learned, of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And I've known about it for a little while, and I've been trying to kind of think of something, this channel being about blindness and low vision and accessibility and games and tech and VR and all that stuff and accessibility. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I mean, I could have just done, hey, here's a bonus video, here's another accessible game video or an accessible app video. It's like, yeah, but I can do that anytime. I wanted to do something a little bit different for that day this time. So what I'm going to do a little chat a little bit about where I think things are as far as accessibility, where we're at and what I would like to see in the future, that kind of a thing. And then because I've had, several subscribers, quite a few subscribers over the past few weeks to months, I want to go through my channel a little bit, maybe highlight a few key videos or a few key playlists that you may want to kind of pay attention to or catch up on with different types of accessibility content, be it apps, games, virtual reality, whatever it happens to be. So there's where we are right now. So like I said, thinking about global accessibility being Global Accessibility Awareness Day, just thinking about where we are as blind and low vision users. I mean, yeah, there are things that we could complain about, I mean, we're always quick to be like, oh, this feature doesn't work right, or God, this is buggy, or, I mean, I'm guilty of that to some degree myself. There's an iOS 11.3 bug that's kind of bugging me, that's really starting to bug me. There's an audio glitch where when I play audio, be it a podcast or music or an audiobook or whatever, the audio keeps playing, but like the sound actually either stops for a couple seconds and then, or it'll like skip or stutter. And I've found a couple of threads online mentioning it, and it's been since 11.3. Prior to that, I've never ever had a problem with it. So I don't know what happened there. I'm really hoping they fix it in iOS 11.4 because I use a lot of audio on my iPhone, and I would like to be able to do it again smoothly. I mean, that being said, though, I mean, how great do we really have it? It's so easy to just be like, oh, stop, we can complain about this, and we can complain, and, we generally do, but we don't really take the time to actually mention the positive things or even think about how great we really have it. I mean, how many things can you do just based on, like, if you have a computer, pick your poison, PC, Mac, whatever, and you have a mobile device, you have an Android or an iPhone, Android phone or an iPhone, how many things can you do just from those, two devices? You could do so many things independently that I wouldn't have even, really dreamed of 10 years ago, well, yeah, 10, for sure 15 years ago. I know I'm old, but I mean, even in college, like I had some of this stuff, but everything was really tied to PC, like being a laptop or a desktop computer, which was great because we still had a lot of nice stuff. But man, if I would have had, especially in high school more than college, if I would have had half the stuff that we have today, I might have actually cared or paid attention. There were some classes that the amount of effort that it would have taken, to do super well, and it's just, if somebody can get something done in 20 minutes and it takes me 3 hours, I'm not going to be all that motivated to do it. I'm not going to lie. It's not going to happen. So, if I had half the stuff we have right now, I would have been much better. I would have been much happier, and I would have been, early on, it was funny because in elementary school, K through 6, I think people actually thought I had a learning disability. I think I may have mentioned this on the channel before, but I think people were thinking that I had a learning disability because, they gave me a little dome magnifier and quote unquote large print and said, here, have at it. technically, yes, I could read it. You know, I was squinting, I was getting super close to the paper. And you know, well, technically you can see it, so maybe it's you know, maybe it's just a slow learning thing as well. No, once I actually got materials in, you know, the large print that I actually really needed, or started to maybe learn a little bit of Braille, which I really should have learned that at a younger age. I might actually be better at it. And getting things in audio and electronic format. Now I read constantly. I've read probably over 50 books so far this year, and I'm not exaggerating. So yeah, I love to learn. I love to read, that kind of a thing. But like where we are right now, we have window. You know, and one thing that I really like is that cost is really coming down. You know, you can get a sweet computer for not a lot of money. And, you know, you don't want to go too bargain basement, because if you do, you're really going to get what you pay for. You know, $200 for a computer, if you're going to do any kind of multitasking and stuff, you may not want to scrape that low. But like you can, you know, there's these computers that we recommend at work, and they are, you know, they're, what are they, Core i5s, they're 8 gigs of RAM, they got Windows 10, 256 gig solid state hard drive. They're like $600. It's a heck of a nice computer, especially if you're, you know, if you're using it for school or daily things. You're not using it for like, you know, gaming or high-end like media production. Works beautifully. And on top of that, assistive technology. You know, yeah, the traditional stuff is still around. We still have JAWS. We still have Zoom Text. You know, both of which definitely have their uses. But for a lot of common things that people do nowadays, you really don't even need. You really don't need that. I haven't had JAWS on my home computer for years now. Mainly because I do so many other things with gaming and media and video and VR now, that I don't want something else in the video chain kind of messing things up. So like, I can get by. I still use a couple of screen readers. I might use Narrator. I might use System Access. I might use NVDA. All of which are free to some degree. You have System Access to Go. Go to www.satogo.com. And you have a free version of that. I have the full license, but nevertheless, you have basically 3 screen readers right there. I have Windows Magnifier. There's a free Magnifier. I actually did do a video of it on one of the AT demo videos early on for Glassbrick. It's a free downloadable or pay what you want screen magnifier program that has a few other features than Windows Magnifier. So I did a video on that a while back. So on the Windows side, you know, you're pretty good. You know, if you really need JAWS, if you really need Zoom Text for some high-end thing or some clarity thing or some feature that the free ones don't have, you can still do that. But I just love the fact that, you know, especially a Windows 10 machine, you can literally take it out of the box. Even if you're totally blind, you can take it out of the box. You can turn it on, wait a little bit. You can hit, well, if the computer's new enough, you can hit Windows Control Enter. That's going to bring up Narrator. And you can go completely through the initial startup accessibly. If it's an older Windows 10 machine that hasn't been patched, like it's been in the inventory for a while, you may have to hit Windows Enter. But in, I think, the the fall update, they switched it to Windows Control Enter. But yeah, so you have that. You know, you have Magnifier. So Windows side, we're good. NVDA is actually becoming really fantastic. I use it a lot, especially at work. It's great. The Mac side, admittedly, I don't use quite as much. I use it for work when I have to. I can kind of fudge my way around it a little bit. I know basic commands to get around. Don't know a whole lot of short keys to do things quickly, but I'll get there eventually. Again, they really started it first. I mean, Windows has had, it's had narrator and magnifier since like Windows 98 or XP, but it really didn't start getting decent until Windows 7 or 8. Windows 7 had good magnifier because you could do full screen. Otherwise, before that, it was like this little strip at the top of the screen, which was kind of useless. 7 had Windows magnifier, and narrator got a little bit better, but Windows 8 and especially Windows 10, that's just where narrator is actually really starting to become a real thing here too. But you got to give Apple credit, starting in like iOS, or not iOS, Mac OS, or OS X, OS 10, what was it? Tiger, I think, was the first one that had some form of voiceover built in. I don't know how long Magnifier or the zoom feature has been in there. That might have been earlier. I don't know. Might have been later. I don't know because I don't use the Mac all that much, or I really haven't started using it until like the past maybe 2 years or so. But they really, are the ones that got this thing going. You had a because when I first heard about VoiceOver, I was curious, but I was comparing it to Microsoft at the time, and like narrator was like, yeah, it technically speaks, but at the time it was kind of terrible. And now I looked at VoiceOver and it was like, oh, okay, you know what? It actually does read the system. It's a little different way of doing it, but it reads it pretty well. And they've had a lot longer because they've devoted more time to it. But Microsoft is catching up nicely. So I'm glad Apple kickstarted that whole accessibility thing. And one thing that you can say about Apple, if they release a new type of product, odds are it's going to be accessible. I mean, think about it. How many people thought touchscreens were going to be fully accessible? I mean, at least Windows Mobile, those were not exclusively touchscreens. You typically had a slide-out QWERTY keyboard. I still have my Touch Pro 2. I should almost try to charge that thing, turn it on, and see if I can record a video and see if I remember how the hell to use it with Mobile Speak Pocket. That ought to be entertaining, because that was not one-to-one touch. You had these weird 4 quadrants on the screen, and you had a couple flick gestures, and like you had to do like, okay, 1 tap here, 2 taps there, or I don't even remember, like a left soft, right soft, and oh my lord, I used to know it well. I don't know if I'd remember much now. I really don't. But Apple, say what you will, but everything that they come out with now is there's kind of this expectation that at least on some level, it's going to be pretty accessible. We had the Mac, then we had iOS with the iPhone and eventually iPad. I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I finally got an Apple Watch when the version 3 came out last fall. This little watch has VoiceOver built in. Apple TV, one of the first real set-top boxes to do a really good job of adding text-to-speech support for blind users. I think I started on the 3rd generation, and then I upgraded to the 4th. I think the 4th gen is when they actually started adding apps. I didn't do the new one, the 4K version or whatever the newest one is, because there was something I didn't feel I needed it. But yeah, I mean, so and there's been actually some rumors lately about them doing either 2019 or 2020 doing some sort of a virtual reality, augmented reality, kind of a mixed reality headset of sort. And as you guys know, I've been really trying to get a hold of these VR platform developers and game developers, app developers, and trying to basically put accessibility into their heads while everyone is still trying to figure things out for VR, so that when standards are actually really when the first real standards are actually out there, I want accessibility to just be another core element, just as anything else would be. I don't know that I'm winning that battle yet, but I'm trying. There's a few of us that are trying, and like I said, with Apple doing it, the one thing that I will say is if they do come out with some type of that type of headset, there's a good chance that maybe that interface within the headset will have some sort of voiceover capability, because everything else in recent years pretty much has. So I sort of kind of have this cautiously optimistic expectation to think that if they do, God, if no one else does it first, they may make me have to really look at that, give that a serious look. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, Apple, everything's. I mean, like I said, I used Windows Mobile for even after iOS was accessible for a while. I kind of fought it. I'm like, yeah, iPhone. There were things I didn't like about Apple. I didn't like their sandboxing, their closed ecosystem. Like Windows Mobile, I could copy files back and forth to and from my computer. I could put ringtones in it. I didn't have to use the iTunes virus, which I still hate. I still really do not. I use my phone constantly, but I hate iTunes. I don't like it still. But the iPad 2 is where I came in. My original thought was that, hey, okay, if I'm going to try this iOS thing, we're going to give it a shot. Instead of getting a phone, my thought was if I get an iPad, well, then I can use both magnification better for using a bigger screen, and I can have the benefit of also learning and using VoiceOver. And let's be honest, there were some cool games around the time that I think, a bigger screen might be a little bit easier to see. So there was that. But the funny thing is, so I tried that. I got it when it came. I got the iPad 2 when it came out, and like early whatever it was that year, like 2012 maybe. And started using it, and overall I really kind of liked it. And the funny thing is by the time the fall came out, that was when the iPhone 4S came out, and Siri was its whole big thing. But the 4S came out, and I was using my iPad going, this is cool, but here's the problem. I started using things like Pandora and looking things up on the internet and streaming things and YouTube and Netflix and all these other things. I'm like, I would like to be able to do this anywhere, not just when I'm on Wi-Fi. So, yeah, I got my iPhone, and yep, 4S. Then I got the 5 because it was bigger. Got the 6 Plus because it was bigger. And I got the 7 Plus because I forget. There was some reason that I got the 7 Plus, but I held off on the 8 and the 10. So this year might be another upgrade year, assuming they don't do something colossally stupid with their design again. But yeah, ever since then, and I really haven't looked back. And like I said, now my iPhone is pretty much a Swiss Army knife that I carry with me. I said I've done app videos, game videos on it. Like, I use it constantly for independence. I use it as a magnifier. I use it as an OCR thing, things like KNFB Reader, Prismo Go, Text Grabber, Seeing AI, use it as a barcode reader, use it for shopping, for finances, for listening and reading books, all kinds of books, be it audiobooks or text-to-speech books, Bookshare, Kindle, whatever. The amount of things that I can do with this, the one thing that I can hold in my hand or put in my pocket, that's pretty dang cool. All my streaming movie and music services. I use it as a camera to record videos, which I never thought I would do. So yeah, it's become really amazing. Then you look at Android. Google has really kind of taken off. Like I said, Google wasn't even a thing really 10 years ago. As far as I'm trying to remember when the first Android phone actually came out. What year did that happen? But they were a little slow to catch on. I remember one of my first things that I did when I started my current job, I was asked to sit in on a Google webinar about accessibility. This was around, I think, when Eclair was out. They were talking about, I think, Cupcake 1.6 was when accessibility really started. But remember, back then even there was a lot of limitations. Like you had you couldn't just use a touchscreen phone. You had some touch stuff, but like you actually had to have, one of the requirements for TalkBack was you actually had to have a phone that had still had a slide out keyboard, so that it would have a up, down, left, right kind of a, and then the enter button in the middle, those kind of directional pad, because that was how you navigated. They didn't really have full touch support in TalkBack in the beginning. I didn't have an accessible Android device. I didn't use Android until the Nexus 7 because I figured that wasn't a cheap entry point, and it was. I learned a bit about it. But even using both Nexus 7s, the old and the new one, before the support was really, unfortunately, short-lived. I mean, they kicked those devices to the curb really quickly, which was really kind of annoying. But I learned enough about it, and I seen where it was going. That was just around the time where things were starting to get really, I would say, decent. I don't know if I would say good, but I would say decent. But now that I have the Samsung, the Galaxy Tab S3, I've been playing with it. I've been using Samsung's screen reader, which I forget the name of, and I've been using TalkBack a lot more, and TalkBack has really gotten quite good. I could easily recommend that to a lot of blind or low vision users. I would say if you are a beginner user, or like you want something that's really just going to be a little bit more consistent, maybe you don't have to do as much fiddling, you just kind of want things to work a certain way and be consistent throughout, I would still say that iOS is probably, even though it's a little bit, it's more expensive, but it's probably still a little bit more consistent, maybe a little bit easier to use. But Google's advantage is you can do a lot more with it. Like you can customize your home screen or your launchers. You can, tweak things. You can just do all kinds of neat things that you can't necessarily, at least easily do on iOS in some ways. And iOS has the other thing that it has this vast app store. Android is getting there, but especially in the accessibility area, there are still some things that aren't, when a new accessible app comes out, it's generally for iOS first. Seeing AI, I know tons of Android users that are clamoring for that app because they want to play with it. Other apps are either more strongly supported or only supported currently on iOS. Sometimes there are alternatives. Sometimes there are not really good one-to-one alternatives, but you kind of just have to pick and choose. Android is cheaper in a lot of ways, and I don't mean cheaper in a bad way. You can get some pretty nice Android hardware for a couple $100. Like these Motorola phones are actually pretty good. A coworker of mine has one, and I've played with it a little bit, and they're not bad. And again, iOS, Android, you can take a modern Android or iOS device out of its box, wait a few seconds, and do some sort of a gesture or something, and you again can set up your device. There's little tutorials that'll walk you through the basics of here's some gestures you can use, here's how you use the keyboard, go. So again, you don't have to spend $800, $1,200 for your screen reader. You can take something out of a box, you can use it. It's awesome. So Google, iOS, Windows, Mac, NVDA, System Access, Narrator, VoiceOver, Zoom, Magnifier. Well, all this stuff is just out there. Glassbrick. And then you have, like I said, what's really exciting me is, everything has been, especially, I work in kind of the vocational rehabilitation field. So everything is focused on work, which, yes, it is important. I really, really want to see that blind, low vision unemployment or underemployment statistic drop drastically. But, people want to have fun too. People want to socialize. People want to, just be independent. People want to have fun. I didn't even mention with, the mobile stuff, you have things like Uber and Lyft and GPS and, all kinds of stuff there, navigation apps and public transportation apps. It's beautiful. But what I'm really excited about is even entertainment is really starting to get into it. I mentioned the Apple TV and other set-top boxes. Amazon, you get their Kindle devices. You get their the Kindle Fire Stick or Kindle Fire TV, whatchamacallit. Those have their built-in accessibility. And again, you can take those out of the box, plug them in, or turn them on and use them. I was shocked. I've always wanted it, but I never thought it would happen. When that Xbox One update came out in the fall of 2016, and it had actually good narrator support throughout the dashboard, I'm like, heck yeah, that was awesome. I was so glad to see that, and I use that on a regular. I use narrator all the time on the Xbox. It's much easier than trying to get close to the screen and try to read stuff. I would love, the next real step is to have some sort of an API that game developers and app developers can just plug into, so that, if I have a text layer, if I have a menu, if I have some tutorial text, if I have an options settings screen, that it sees narrator is running, or it could just use that in game. Skullgirls, I keep mentioning that, but I mean, the way that the PC version of that, you can use that with any screen reader that you have running, and the whole game speaks start to finish. I open it, menus, tutorials, move lists, dialogue, everything, until I close that app, until I close that game. Skullgirls speaks. And I said that is ideally, especially games that are super text heavy, role-playing games. Role-playing games are the huge culprit, or even action games now. Like, everything has to have skill trees and upgrades and lore, and there's a lot of item management, inventory management. Oh, is this sword better than this one, or what armor do I have for this person, or and all that stuff is a lot of times really small. If I had, I enjoy playing even some action games, but if there's so much time spent in menus and these skill trees and upgrade things, it's like it kind of lessens my interest, just because it's kind of difficult to read, and it's just not efficient. And if I have to spend so much game time in there, I'm just not as inclined to do it, especially with the limited time that I have these days to devote seriously to something. If I want to play a game, I want to get in and I want to play it. So I didn't think the dashboard thing would happen. Sony's doing it to a degree as well. But I'd love to see more things in-game become accessible. I know there's been some small movements to that, adding audio cues in some fighting games, so that people can hear certain things that are happening, certain cues. The adaptive difficulty things that are happening with games like Celeste and what was the other game? Way of the Pacifist, and the one that I just recorded today, actually, released for you guys, the City of Brass. That's also got that kind of adaptive difficulty, controller remapping, colorblind mode features. I mean, every time, there's been things where you hear on Twitter a lot. So, 5 years ago, companies were getting recognized because, oh wow, this game has a colorblind mode. And now it's gotten to the point that game companies are vocally criticized when they don't. And I would love the technology to just get better, so that you have low vision features, so that you have text to speech. And I would love to see that same thing happen. It's like, hey, okay, why aren't you guys supporting text to speech for your text in your games? Why aren't you offering color or text size options? I would love to see that become a thing in the next 5 years or so too. working with Microsoft earlier this year on that racing game stuff, the Forza Turn 10 stuff. That was really awesome, and I'm very curious because there were some really interesting, good ideas. I did a video on that. If you check out my Forza 6 review, I think, or my Forza 6 video has some of that Microsoft session talk in there. But yeah, I mean, so like even entertainment, there are still people that lag behind. Nintendo is being its slow sell. I mean, before anything's going to happen, like Nintendo still has to figure out how the internet works. Yes, it does some internet things. It does some basic online play, but I mean, they just announced their paid online service for later this year, and I'm like, it's not bad, but it's not it's not great. They're just things that, every other platform has, Steam, Xbox, PS4, that we just take for granted. And Nintendo's like, oh, we do our own thing. We're like I said, we're in like 1995 here. We're good. Maybe I'll give them credit. Maybe the year 2000. Steam, that's another one where, I love the dark look of it. It's kind of just like this YouTube page. It looks decent, but like screen reader accessibility, forget it. I've wrote into them several times. I know other people have written into them several times. And the ironic thing is, there are blind accessible games on Steam. Karateka, A Blind Legend, Grail to the Thief are three that I can immediately think of. So you have the games, but like once you're in the Steam launcher, you can't. You can buy them through steampowered.com, but you can't actually use the client to install and launch them. I think there's some depressing irony there. So, there's a few companies that really need to play catch up here and actually finally decide, if everyone else is doing it, I'm at least hoping maybe eventually they'll get publicly shamed into like, okay, we'll do it too, if nothing else for the fact that we kind of have to at this point. Otherwise we just look stupid. But yeah, I'm just really happy that, even there, look at Game Developers Conference. Look at CSUN. In the last few years, there's been an increasing number of accessibility sessions there. Heck, in the last 2 years now, we're on our set. We had two. I haven't gone yet, but we have had two conferences, game accessibility conferences, around Game Developer Conference time. And that was a one-day conference exclusively devoted to game accessibility. We're getting another one, a European one, I forget, sometime this fall. So it's really starting to take off. Indie developers and even mainstream developers, EA for God's sake, the company that people love to hate, myself included to a certain degree. I mean, things like Battlefield 2 last year and all their microtransaction nonsense garbage that, ugh. But EA Sports and their EA Access accessibility hub, look at what they did with Madden last year. Madden 18. It's not perfect. It's the full game isn't accessible, but a blind person can get in and they can play a game of football and actually score touchdowns and have fun doing it. So, if EA is doing it, if we can get like EA and maybe Activision to do something, again, once you hit this tipping point, like if you can get a few of the major players to even start doing it, then you have hit that tipping point where other people actually do put, oh, okay, I guess if these big guys are going to do it, maybe we want to go down this route too. And that's why I'm really, really trying to, again, before we wrap up this part here, that's why I'm really trying to push for VR accessibility. I did that ID24 presentation on VR accessibility last November. And, my channel here, I have a whole playlist devoted to VR accessibility. I want accessibility to be a standard. I want somebody at Oculus. I want somebody at Steam VR or Valve. I want somebody through Apple. I want somebody at PlayStation VR. One of these, just one platform to have a text-to-speech or accessible in-headset accessibility. And if we can at least get one of them to do it, I mean, there's not all that many platforms. If you get one of them to do it, maybe the other ones will follow. Again, if we can hit that tipping point. So we'll see. You know, again, I'm trying to make a couple connections here as well, and maybe try to get connected with somebody at Oculus. I have tried to contact Oculus, both about their Oculus Go and accessibility on their Rift, and if I had a cricket sound effect, I would cue that right now, because that's all I've gotten. The most I've gotten, I think, one time was one of those, you know, canned replies of like, yes, we'll take your email into consideration, thank you, drive through. You know, it's just, yeah, your carbon copy response. I really, really hate those. So that's kind of where, like I said, there are things to complain about. There is definitely work to be done, but I mean, how amazing is it right now? I can get any book, almost any book, any movie, music, almost instantly on my computer or something I have in my hand, on my phone or tablet. I know virtual reality is a thing. You know, what used to be science fiction in the 60s and 70s or even 80s to a degree, we have that now. Like, we have better than that right now in some cases. So there's that. Now, before I wrap up, I do really quickly want to show you, let me zoom in a ways here, give you guys some magnification, since we are actually going to play with my website here, Illegally Cited. I got my YouTube channel loaded. I do want to show you guys, just draw your attention to, again, some videos, some playlists especially, that, you know, depending on what type of videos you like from the channel or that you watch through the channel, I want to, especially if you're a new subscriber, there may be old videos that you have missed. So I want to draw your attention to those. So we got our recent videos here, got our City of Brass thing there, awesome game. I really got to play that again maybe tonight. Recent update, Beat Saber VR, fun, good times. iOS game. I resurrected recently a playlist, and I renamed it. It used to be called AT Demos, which I think was kind of a poor name. I'm assuming that, oh, people know what AT means, you know, assistive technology or adaptive technology, whatever you want to call it. Now I've called it, you know, Assistive Technology Spotlight, going again with all my Spotlight playlist themes. So, you know, low vision spotlight, iOS, whatever. We'll get to that in a minute. But here's a video that I just did on one of the nice new volume mixer, volume features in Windows 10. You can actually not just adjust your app volume for everything, but you can choose input and output sources, which is really handy for my Rift. Or I gave some, you know, screen reader use case scenarios in that video. So you have things like that. Let's go to my playlists here and just take a gander at what we've got here. So we got our low vision spotlights. These are my most, you know, because I cover a lot of games. Okay, so currently 186 that are currently unlocked for you guys. I have even many more recorded. But these are my, you know, taking a low vision game that I look at, or a regular game, a mainstream game that I look at on PC. And we find out how accessible it is. You know, like, can I play it? What do I like? What do I don't like? Is it just a cool game? They're just things I want to play, or things I, you know, really want to cover. Tips, tricks, and troubleshooting. This is another playlist that I resurrected. I haven't really done much with this in a while, but, you know, I've got some audio stuff here. I've got some, like, Windows Magnifier. I got some YouTube stuff. A little bit of every, you know, a fair number of videos in there. VR game spotlight. So I have both VR games and experiences. So if you want to watch some VR games, you want to watch some non-gaming stuff, because there is a lot of it out there, educational or just entertainment or whatever. You have that. Assistive Technology Spotlight. Again, here we go. This is where I covered anything from like system access way back in the day. Some of the older videos are probably a little bit outdated, but the core stuff will still be relevant. You know, assistive technology. Glassbrick should be in there. Some of the, like I said, that new Windows 10 thing. There's a good 13 videos in there. VR experiences, early access. These are games that are not done yet, but I figure they're cool enough, or there's something worthy to talk about on them. So those are early access games on Steam. And we got a lot of iOS stuff. So you have Blindfolded. This is a series that is just for the Blindfold series of games. You know, Blindfold Bowling, Blindfold whatever. There's like I said, probably even a couple. There's a whole bunch of those on iOS right now. So I put them in their own category because there's a ton of them, then more that I need to cover. iOS accessible games. I talked about, yeah, there are blind accessible games, and actually I've covered 33 of them so far that I've unlocked for you guys. So there's quite a bit. You know, I know a couple of them aren't there. The Something Else games are not there anymore, but the vast majority of them probably still are. So there's a lot there. iOS Low Vision Spotlight. These, again, are low vision games that I can play as a low vision user. Probably not going to be accessible to a totally blind player, but if you are low vision, especially if you have like an iPad, maybe a larger screen, a lot of stuff that could be cool there. Events and updates. This is where I cover things, you know, if I look at WWDC or a Google or Microsoft keynote, channel updates, something really new or fascinating happens that I just want to talk about. This is kind of where I do my babbling videos. This is probably where this is going to go. Actually, I know this is where this is going to go because we're going to talk about, you know, this is basically a Global Accessibility Awareness Day video, so that's where it's going to go. What do we got here? Oh, yes, inclusive accessible game spotlight. And so I'm going to lump these two together. Inclusive accessible and accidental accessible game spotlight videos. These may also appear under accessible or low vision spotlights, but I want to call specific attention to games in the inclusive game playlist. Those are games that a company has actually gone out of their way and added some kind of accessibility features to their game. They said, hey, we're doing some accessibility thing. This is what we're doing. Things like Madden, things like Skullgirls, things like Way of the Passive Fist. You know, they specifically mentioned, hey, we want those to be, I think Celeste might even be in there. I think that might be our 4. And then you have the accidental accessibility. They didn't design the modern remake of Karateka to be accessible necessarily, but due to the nature of how the gameplay works, you know, you're basically repeating audio patterns to do your moves. You hear 3 gongs, and then you gotta tap 3 times to do your move. There's almost like a rhythm game-esque quality to it. So that's a game that, it's unintentionally, but it is playable. It is accessible to people. So there's a couple games in there. So those you might want to look at if you're looking for something to play. Access Unlocked. This is where this is a fairly new series I started last year, where I take a mainstream game or gameplay style or, gameplay thing, and I try to figure out, to my knowledge, there's not a blind accessible version of this, so I take it something that if I were a blind person, as a sighted person, I can play this and I'm addicted to it, I love it. How can I make, here's some ideas, if game developers want to watch these or, whoever, how can I make these accessible? How can I make this gameplay concept or gameplay genre, how can I make that accessible to a blind player? So I've got a couple videos in there for those. I kind of want to do another one. I kind of really want to do something with something like that City of Brass. Again, I've really fallen for that game, and I have some ideas on a kind of a fun variant that you could do for accessibility. PC accessible game spotlight. There's a few of these. I've covered a fair number of these. Some of these are through Steam. Some of these are, directly downloadable through websites or purchasable through websites. There's definitely more that, more that I do need to cover. So there's quite a few there. There's over 20 videos of those. Xbox game spotlights. Not too many of these right now, but these are my Xbox One games that I've been playing. Hardware reviews. I know there's a lot of headphones in them. I even make fun of it myself. But there's a lot of different Bluetooth and wired headset reviews. There are some speakers. There's some I even have my drum kit in there, my electronic drum kit. I've got some tablets, I've got some phones, I've got, I don't know, whatever else is in there. I've got a few more things coming for that. iOS accessible apps. So these aren't games, but these are just, things that'll help in independence. Got a whole bunch of stuff there. It could be reading, could be shopping, could be whatever. Blind character. This is a playlist that I do. There's a few games in there that, the focus of the game, things like Perception or Beyond Eyes, that's the one we're looking at right here. Those are games that really feature a blind character as part of that's part of their shtick, part of their identity as the game. So, I want to, again, mention on those. Doomed. This is a recent playlist that I compiled from all of my other Doom videos. So if you really like Doom like I do, like I said, it's Doom. The original Doom is probably my favorite game of all time. But this is where I cover like Doom and Brutal Doom and the Doom 2016 remake or update, things like that. Kickstarted. These are games that I have personally kickstarted. I've backed on Kickstarter, and they've actually come out, and I can play them, and I can cover them. So we've got a few kickstarted games in there. Geek Loot Spotlight. I got maybe one or two more of these coming up here pretty soon. Got my cool Ed 209 there. That's pretty awesome. But just some kind of geek tchotchkes, geek collectibles, those kinds of things. I got those in there. And then it's largely like Let's Plays. We've got an AR spotlight here. I've only got one video in there, but I definitely need to add more to that. Let's Plays. I'm not going to go through all of them, but like a couple that would stand out to me are the Stanley Parable. That was a really great one. South Park: The Stick of Truth. That was another pretty fun one to do. Those are some ones that I would highlight. And I did do a full playthrough for the Nightjar and Papa Sangre 1. If you guys have the urge to kind of relive those games. Couldn't do Papa 2 because of the audio lag that I was getting the way I'm mirroring my iOS device to my computer. It wasn't playable to the point where I could actually succeed through the game. Gaming accessibility. There's a couple of videos in here. I don't even remember what's in there other than we got the Xbox dashboard. Oh, the PlayStation, the PSP. I did the low vision. They didn't have speech, but they had like a magnifier in that. I don't know what the third video in that is, to be honest with you. I don't remember. And I also have one for VR accessibility, which is, let's see, and then I have iOS accessibility. These videos are old, but again, a lot of the core information is still relevant. I recorded these back in like iOS 6 or so, but these are, you're just getting started with voiceover. They'll still be helpful for a beginner voiceover user. A lot of the core things still apply. Where is it? Oh, Job Simulator. Good. Oh, that's another one that I would recommend. The Let's Play for Job Simulator. Great game. Minecraft Creator City Final Tour. If you want to see some of my cool Minecraft creations, I would recommend my Creator City Final Tour and the co-op tour where I worked with a friend of mine, Jawbreaker. On those, we got some Doom stuff. There's my Stanley Parable. I think I missed. I think I might have passed over my VR accessibility. We got a whole bunch of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. I've played through all those. One of my favorite series ever. Left 4 Dead. I love those games. Vermintide. I remember that. But yeah, I do have a VR accessibility. I also want to draw your attention to that because, again, that's something I'm really, really concentrating on. Oh, okay, I didn't go far enough. Here it is, right after the AR spotlight. I skipped it. VR accessibility. I have 7 videos, and they range from it's not just low vision. It's general low vision, which is what this thumbnail is. We've got locomotion in VR. We have third-person accessibility. We have my ID24 low vision accessibility presentation. So there's a lot of good information in there. If you are a developer, you know a developer, you want to be able to play some VR games, and you contact some developer, link the playlist, show them a link to the playlist. I'd be happy to communicate with them. I'd be happy to answer questions for people if you have them. Because that is the new platform, and I don't want to be left as a person with a vision impairment, as a legally blind VR user. I don't want to be left behind. I want to be able to enjoy it just like everybody else does. So again, I want to get get that accessibility in those standards early so that people will actually bother to maybe use them. So that is kind of, like I said, just a tour of everything on the channel. Everything should pretty much be organized into a playlist. I think sometime last year I made sure I kind of went through a lot of my old videos, and it took a while. Because I have a lot of videos. I think I start this in 2012, 2013? God, I can't believe it's been that old. Has it been that long ago? Oh, dear God. Actually, I can find out. There's a playlist. Let me see. Yeah, Minecraft. I know if I go to here. This was the first video that I ever did. Where is the date? Oh, I thought it had a date. Oh, maybe. Oh, wait, here we go. Illegally cited. 2012. May 2nd, 2012. Wow. I've been doing this for 6 years, you guys. Holy crap. I'm old. That's insane. That's just been a blur. So yeah, if you want to watch my original play, the first thing I did on this channel was an early tour. I wasn't even done with it yet. My early Minecraft castle and Castle Town. Audio quality isn't good as good. I was using a different headset at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. But for what it was, I think it still worked out okay. But yeah, that should give you guys a good idea, at least, of what types of videos are on the channel, how they are organized. Like I said, going into some of those, game accessibility or iOS accessibility, or, there's, like I said, all these other types of accessibility playlists. I'm covering essential apps for low vision, essential apps for blind. Screen magnifiers, or iOS magnifier apps, or just all kinds of different things that we've covered in there. So a lot of stuff, and like I said, it's going to be a busy time in the next couple of months because we still have WWDC, we have E3, both of which I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in both of those. I have games, like I said, my Steam library is embarrassingly large, and there's still stuff coming out all the time. Yeah, so there's all of that to look forward to. And just to give you an idea, I mentioned this in my channel update video the other day. If I go to Video Manager, this is stuff that you won't see. This is where all my videos are listed. And, some of these things you've seen. Some of them you haven't. So there's a good mixture between, and if I go all the way down to the bottom here, I have pages and pages of this stuff, basically from page 1 to maybe 8 or so. There's a lot of videos in there. There's some that I've released for you guys, but there's some that I just haven't done. So there's apps and games and accessible games and hardware reviews and geek stuff and all kinds of stuff. So again, I record things when I can, so that way if I am on vacation or sick or need a video to release on my Wednesday or Saturdays or for a bonus video, I can do it. So plenty recorded, plenty more to come. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Happy Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Definitely follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. I'm basically going to release this video tomorrow. I'm going to also probably tweet links to some of my highlighted videos, maybe especially things like the Skullgirls video or my VR accessibility playlist, my ID24 VR accessibility session video. Things like that, because that's what that day is all about. I want to, not just spread the word of the channel and my stuff, but I really want to get the word out there. And if it's a day there where everybody is kind of looking at accessibility, maybe especially in this VR arena, if I can get people to kind of look at it and go, oh, hey, there are people that want to play this. Maybe we should give it a look and see if we can finally do something. So, again, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. Join the Illegally Cited Steam group. You can go to illegallyscited.com. There's not much there, but it is a thing. I do own that domain now. And, yeah, otherwise, the usual, like and subscribe. I know it sounds cliche, but I'll put it here anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Follow me, do all the stuff, and until next time, I will talk to you guys again later.